then when you get to one, it won't throw you. But if you're expecting perfection on an exam, whether it's this one or any other one, you're not going to find it. And don't allow yourself in the middle of an exam to get upset because there's a question that you think is stupid that counts one measly point. So just throw yourself off. And this goes way beyond this course. I mean, all the way through life. Bad stuff happens and you expect it, you're not shocked by it. So the multiple choice questions are not problems, and they are equally drawn from chapters 10 through 14. That is, there are 4 from each chapter. Okay, so that is about a third, less than a third, but that's 30% of the exam. Then there are fill in the blanks. There are 10 of them. And they also count 5 points each. They are all definitions. So I give you the definition, you have to say what it is. And again, I've said this before, but what you don't want to happen is to go out and get a job in the real world and have somebody expect you to know something and you really should know it and you don't know it. So there's some terminology you just have to know, and the world is not multiple choice. If you go to the doctor and there's something wrong with you, the doctor doesn't say, in trying to make the diagnosis, doesn't say, well, give me 4 possibilities and I'll tell you which one it is. They have to come up with it without having the multiple choice possibilities. And you do too. Although the good news is, once you get out in the real world, you're not going to do a lot of calculations on your own. They'll be in some computer program, and that's the good news. The bad news is you're not there yet, and you have to go right now. Okay, so when you hit one of those questions that you think is stupid, just blow through it, do it the best you can, and go to the next one. That's what they always tell you on any kind of multiple choice test. Is don't let it get you down. But the fill in the blanks, you kind of know it or you don't. It could be that there's something somewhere else on the exam that gives you a hint. That's not intentional, but that always happens on an exam. So there could be a multiple choice question that includes a term, and it may be that clues you, oh yeah, that's what that means. Now I remember. So if you can learn from the exam, do so. Exams are not designed for you to learn from them. In fact, it's just the opposite. They don't want you to learn from the exam. Okay, we've got some mean and standard deviation calculations. And actually, I did put in here population version. So we've got a series of numbers, and now we just went through an n equals 10 problem. So right now, if you didn't clear out your calculator, you have 10 periods worth of data. And if you start a new problem and don't clear out that data, it's going to correct all, let's say if it's a 5-period problem, it's going to put new stuff for the first 5 periods, but it's going to leave the stuff for periods in 6 through 10. So you need to clear that before you get started. And it's especially important if the last problem had more periods than the one you're working on. Okay, so you're going to have to be able, and this is the type of standard deviation that we just did a while ago. You're going to need to be able to pull off your calculator the mean, the standard deviation.
Arithmetic or geometric?
That'll be arithmetic, but you're going to be, I'll just tell you what this problem is. It gives you a series of numbers. You have to calculate a mean, a standard deviation, a beta, and a geometric mean return. It's all stuff that you've done. Then there's the other kind of standard deviation, which doesn't use n, which uses probabilities, the probability that something will occur. And remember, you have to multiply the probability times the return for that particular state of nature. So if the economy is good, there's a 30% chance that it'll be good, and if it's good, our return will be 10%. So you have to multiply the 30% times the 10%, and you have to do it for the other states of nature too. You add them up, and that gives you your expected return. And then you go through the same process for the. So this is, do you have the that introduction to model portfolio theory? Okay, so on this one, which is page 3, let me go to page 3. Okay, so this is the ex post version where she says, where she's showing, here's a set of returns, here are the deviations, here are the square deviations, add up the square deviations, divide by n, take the square root, that's the standard deviation. So that's what we just did on the calculator a minute ago. The ex ante version, and ex ante is before the fact. The ex ante version says we're looking at the future. And the futures, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But we do have a probability distribution. And our probability distribution says there's a 10% chance in this column, 10% chance of a minus 10 return, and a 20% chance of a 0 return, and 40% of a 10% return, 20% of a 20% return, and 10% of a 30% return. So to get the mean value, we have to multiply each return by its associated probability. That's what this column is. Then we add them up, and that gives us our mean. For the standard deviation, and remember this 2, there's a 2 under this blob here, and that 2's not supposed to be there. For the standard deviation, we need to get all the deviations from the mean, and that's the stuff that's up here in the parentheses up here, the Ri minus expected R. So we calculate an expected R as 10%. Now we need to get the deviations from the mean. Well, the return in this period would be minus 10, so the deviation from the mean would be the difference between minus 10 and 10. So that's minus 20. And the next deviation is 10, and the next deviation, 10 minus 10 is 0, and 20 minus 10 is 10, and 30 minus 10 is 20. And then we need to square those. So we take those, because it says here, square those deviations from the mean. So this column says square those deviations. And then this column says take those squared deviations and multiply by the probability. Here's my squared deviation. Here's my probability. 10%, multiply them together. When we add all that stuff up, we have the variance. When we take the square root, we have the standard deviation. So that's the other kind of standard deviation calculation that you can have. And important, do not use the probabilities and then divide by n. So you're kind of double counting when you do that, and you end up with a number that's terribly wrong.
So would it be similar to question 10 on chapter 13?
Yes, it would be like this, except really I don't think I do have any with multiple assets. I don't have any with multiple assets. So it's like this, except forget these two guys, and I'm only going to have 3 states of nature, which just makes it a little bit easier, just have one less to deal with.
So it's not like weighted on the exam?
It's not like weighted, you mean among the
Like
different-
here, like 30% goes to stock A, 40
Yeah,
to stock B, okay.
No, so we're just using understand when people are anxious because that problem in the text at the end of the chapter was really hard, and it took me a long time to do. And let me explain how I look at this. There are some things that are very hard, and nobody would get it right on an exam. There's just not enough time to get it right on the exam, and you can't know everything. But that's what homework is for you to slug your way through it and see what this thing is, even though, and I don't expect everybody to agree with this, even though you're not going to be tested on it, it's my responsibility to make sure you're exposed to it, and not just to say it's in the chapter, but to actually have you work your way through and see what this does. But do I want to grade something where everybody gets it wrong? And the answer is no. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do me any good. But I know that I assigned something that that if you did it, you were exposed to this item. Does this make sense at all? Okay, let me continue to go through this then. Okay, weighted average cost of capital. So we've got debt and preferred stock and equity. And the equity you have to do two ways. You have to do the capital asset pricing model and the Gordon growth model. Both will be given to you.
The formulas will?
Sorry?
The formulas are given to us?
No, I won't give you any formulas. But thank you for that clarification. I will expect you to be able to calculate the cost of equity using Gordon growth model and capital asset pricing model. Now, you will have to calculate the weights yourself. Note, these weights are market value weights. So you have to be able to calculate the market values of any of the assets, which means if you know the price of a bond and you know how many bonds there are, then you can calculate the market value. You just multiply the price by the number of bonds outstanding. And if you know the price per share of the stock and you know how many shares outstanding there are, you multiply together and that's the value of the stock. And so you have to get the values of each of the categories and add them up, and that's the total value, and then you get the percentages of each one.
Yeah, this is chapter 14, right?
Yeah. Any question about how you do that?
If we can go through those figures.
Pardon me?
If you can go through those figures.
Okay, let me get through the exam and I'll see, because I've only got like 8 minutes. We've got something like we just went through. We've got a break even.
When you say something like we just went through, were you talking about the chapter 11 problem? About
The
operating
best
cash
case.
flow? Oh, okay.
Yeah, best case scenario stuff. So I think I said break even.
Which,
Yes.
which break even is it?
Or
Is there
good.
like 4?
That I won't say. You need to know the break even. There's an operating cash flow.
Same thing, we don't know which type of operating cash flow? I mean, I guess they're all the same, right?
Yeah, they all come up to be the same answer. It's just which approach you take. So there's a rather big problem, and this is a long exam. I'm not gonna fool with you on this. It's a long exam, and as you're taking the exam, you have to think to yourself, this exam is long. I'm miserable, I hate this, I hate him, why am I here, I shouldn't have to be, which gets you nothing, it gets you nothing. So think in terms of Admiral McRaven, what he was talking about. is gonna sound sexist, but life's a bitch and then you die. Okay, so get over it. Go through, do what you have to do, and look around. I mean, everybody is gonna take the same test in the same amount of time as you. So to the extent that you kind of waste time being upset about it, you're just keeping yourself from doing as well as the person who's next to you, who recognizes this situation. Sorry about the life's addiction. Because there is one part, and all the parts of the problems count 10 points each. There is one that is going to be long, and I really would be shocked if more than 5 people get this right. Well, it's operating cash flow. So there's a problem that includes operating cash flow. So again, everything's curved at the end anyway. So don't allow yourself to get focused too much on exactly what your raw score is going to be. You've got to worry about what the next person's score is going to be. That's the old story about the guy that 2 guys are hiking, and one has a backpack. He has hiking boots, but in his backpack he has some tennis shoes. And they find out there's a bear, and they can see the bear's going to come after them. And the one guy takes his running shoes out of his backpack and starts putting them on. And the other guy says, well, "Why are you doing that? You can't outrun a bear." He says, "I just have to outrun you." So if I'm the bear, you need to worry about outrunning each other. Okay, so that's pretty much the test. Now,
What's the best case scenario? Is that just simply what's the price on the best and what's the
that
best,
table?
the worst? Is that?
The best case scenario would be if everything goes well.
Okay.
So that would mean a higher price, higher number of units of output, lower variable cost,
Yeah.
lower fixed cost. I mean, everything to the good. And of course, that's not going to happen.
And about DOL and the present value, what's that? Which part?
You will have to calculate the degree of operating leverage. You will have to calculate the degree of operating leverage.
Will there be a question on C-test value?
No. Did you get my note on about Z-test? I missed this. One of the Connect problems gave you an answer based on a Z statistic. I sent you an email that says, look, here's a video on the Z statistic, but I'm not going to. But don't allow that to cause you to blow off Z statistics for the rest of your life. This is something that you will see reference to later on, and maybe you will have to say, "God, what was that thing again?" Because everybody does that. But it is an important concept in statistics that I know everybody has. Somebody just raise their hand over here. Yeah. Okay, are we good? Maybe a little bit. Okay, I'll be in my office from 3 to 5 today. Chapter 12 and 13 homework. Yes. 12, 13. Okay, Nicholas Hughes, where'd you go? I've got
I don't know, like I don't. Cause I'm gonna do tomorrow, like cramp it up tonight. And then
Always better to have a plan.
we're going over Wednesday. I guess. This is Sunday night, Saturday night.
I'm gonna be busy this weekend, unfortunately, so I don't know. So I would like to be able to start from
Yeah, cause I mean like tomorrow,
I'll try to see what time works best for us.
thing till like 9. And Friday. I did Saturday, I didn't really have any Saturday, so pretty much all day Saturday.
All that stuff, it should work.
I'm sorry.
Non posso mai se sono una paixão com ele, já tinha que dar
Your pencil.
Take it.
Already closed the record.
Take it.
Add, already closed the record.
Thank you.
What would be a sensitivity question? Sensitive to fixed costs, surveillance costs?
That would be a fair question.
When's your interview? Is it now?
No, it's like 2 now.
Good luck.
Did you?